Hello, welcome everybody who happens to be here. I'm really glad that you joined me. Misha, come here. Let me introduce you to my buddy and my one of my therapists. Oh, this is my buddy. This is my Misha. Can you say hi, bud? Huh? Can you say hi? So that's why I'm sitting on the floor. So he'll sit on my lap. This is Misha. He is not sure what he is. He's the closest thing to a Russian blue that I've ever come across. He's got the green eyes. He's got the gray fur with the silver tips. So in the right light, he looks blue. But he is such a social boy. He's such a good guy, and I just love him. He means so much to me. And times when I'm struggling, when I'm upset, when I'm hurting, he knows and he's there for me. And he's just the sweetest thing. I love him. Just love him. So anyway, he's joining us today, and like I said, I wanted to the title of the live stream today. It's a few words of encouragement. Uh, I want to tell you a little bit about myself so you understand where I'm coming from, and maybe you'll understand better that I know what I'm talking about in certain situations. Um, I live in Utah, in central Utah, and I grew up here. I moved away and lived other places, but I've been back here for probably 18 years. Um, Life's been interesting. I grew up on a farm just north, like just 10 minutes away from where I live now. We were poor. We lived on a farm. We were out of town. I didn't realize what a good life I really had. We lived right next door to my grandparents out on that farm. When I was about 11 years old, I was in a really bad accident, and it was, let's see, it was September of 1982, and I came home from school. I remember we had a little motorcycle. I got on that. I remember putting my helmet on. I remember latching the thing up and getting on the motorbike and taking off. And my brother was watching because he wanted his turn next. And where we lived, the main road that went right by our farm and by a lot of other farms, at the west end of that road was a big turkey farm. And they had lots of different sheds and places where they kept Norbest brown turkeys, as what they raised there. And there were always feed trucks and water trucks that would go up and down that road to take the feed and the water to the turkeys. And this is in September, so we had a big old garden full of corn. And I was going past this cornfield that went right by that road. And so, this main road's going this way. I'm coming this way to get on the road and then either go that way or that way. I don't even remember. But what happened is there was a feed truck that was driving. Let's see, it was going this way. Yeah, it was going this way. And he couldn't see me. There's this cornfield here. So he's going this way. Here's the cornfield. And here's me. I couldn't see him. I couldn't hear him because I was listening to the motorcycle engine, trying to listen to the gears and stuff. And anyway, we met. Somehow we met. And I don't remember a lot of this part, but I got caught underneath. Hey, where are you going? Do you want to sit here with me? Anyway, I got caught underneath that feed truck somehow. And I think that I held on to something so that I wouldn't go under the wheel. I really can't remember a lot of that part, but I think I was holding on. And that truck didn't know. He didn't hear me, didn't feel anything. Anyway, that truck continued down this road. This was a dirt, gravel road. And I don't remember much of the next probably 30 seconds. But one of the other farmers heard me screaming above the roar of this engine, and he ran out into the road and stopped the guy that was driving this truck. And this is the part where I remember is after the truck stopped, I remember trying to stand up. It drug me down. I've been drugged down this road. It had taken everything, all the flesh off down to the bones on my legs. And I don't know, this is bad lighting in here to show you some of my scars. It's kind of hard. Yeah, I can't really. I need. Let me shut this blind. Excuse me, just a minute, so I can show you. Misha, come here, bud. Okay, maybe I still can't really see it. Get really close. Yeah, it's just bad lighting, but I've got a massive scar on here, and I can remember looking down at this leg and just seeing blood, and I can see my bones. And this was on both legs. It was my elbow. When I had hit that truck, it had knocked my helmet off, even though the helmet, I remember latching that helmet on. It had knocked it off, and somehow my head was cut, so I had a really bad cut on my head, and it lifted my scalp up, and my face just looked like hamburger. I mean, I had cuts and stuff everywhere. I was a mess. And I was in shock, and I can remember looking down at my legs and trying to walk and looking back towards the house. And I knew my parents weren't home because they were both at work, but my grandmother was home and my grandpa was on the farm somewhere. And the only thing in my head was, I've got to get back to my grandmother's. And I guess my grandmother came running, my brother, and my poor brother, it traumatized him. It probably still bothers him to this day. And this was a long time ago, but it was bad. It was bad. I know that my German Shepherd came running, and he knew something was really wrong, and he wouldn't let anybody get near me. He was trying to protect me. And, I do not believe in coincidence. And right at that time, there are two gentlemen that were driving out to our house to deliver a birthday party invitation to my brother. These two men both happened to be EMTs, and they knew what to do. And I remember being in the back of their pickup truck, and my grandmother was holding my head, and they were trying to wrap up my wounds and get me to the hospital. And I remember bits and pieces of that. I don't really remember being in the local hospital here, but this was 1982. There was no life flight, and the doctor that met me there in the ER just didn't think I would make it. But they put me in an ambulance and sent me north to the biggest hospital close to us, which happened to be in Provo. And they had called plastic surgeons, and there were two really good plastic surgeons that were ready and waiting when I got there, and I survived. And I survived the surgery, everything. They had to do a lot of washing, to get rid of all the dirt and the gravel that was embedded in my body. I had lots of stitching to do on my face, on my head. They shaved my hair. They did skin grafts. They took skin grafts off of my my upper legs, my thighs here, to put down here. And I don't remember a whole lot of that. I remember them telling me they were going to have to shave my hair, and I remember screaming, no, here I am, could lose my life, would probably lose my legs, and yet I'm worried about my hair. But that's the age I was, worried about my appearance. But anyway, then I was in the hospital for quite a few weeks, and I had lots of surgeries because the skin grafts that they were trying to, cover these wounds with, didn't want to take. Some of them kept dying. And so they were wondering if they might have to amputate, part of my legs, if they couldn't get these skin grafts to take. I came out of it, though. I came out of it okay. I mean, my legs still work. I still have them. I still have my life. But, that accident was extremely traumatic, and it has played a big role in everything that's happened in my life ever since. I mean, and it was a good knock on the head. Mental illness runs in my family on on both sides, mostly depression and anxiety anyway. And I was a depressed kid. I can't remember a time as a child when I wasn't depressed. I didn't know what was wrong at the time, but I was. But that knock on the head made my mental illness much worse, much worse. um, and it took some that whole it was a lot of changes. Took a lot of getting used to, and I had to get over, as a teenager, had to get over worrying about my appearance and worrying about what people thought. I was really embarrassed when I finally did go back to school, and my hair was like maybe that long, and I was on crutches, and I don't. Anyway, I went through a lot of depression and a lot of anxiety because of that trauma. And then when I was 17 years old, my father was diagnosed with cancer, and like within 6 months he was dead. Um, that was extremely traumatic for our family. My mother, she's not a citizen of the United States. She's Australian, and here she is, in the United States with 4 kids, and her husband just died. And the whole thing was really hard. And didn't after a few years, I graduated from high school and I took off. I started school. I started studying nursing, and I ended up getting married shortly after that. And I bounced around several different universities, and I ended up having my first daughter. And I finally got through nursing school, started working as a nurse, and had my second daughter. But the whole time I'm trying to deal with all of the trauma and all of the things that had happened in our family. It was hard. And I want to explain something. When I was 11, and I was first still in the hospital after this accident, and I'd had all these surgeries. I was in a lot of pain, and they were giving me Demerol shots. I don't remember how often, but they were giving me the maximum dose, every time that they could. I don't remember anymore what the intervals were, but I figured out really quickly that narcotics, they deaden your physical pain, but all the anxiety, all the mental and emotional pain that you feel, it deadens that too. And I learned that. And I remember nurses and a doctor even coming in to talk to me about addiction at 11 years old. And I just kept telling them, no, I'm not addicted. I'm just in pain. And the truth was, towards the end of that first hospital stay, I was taking it more for the emotional pain, than the physical. I never forgot that, but once I got out of the hospital and home and healed up, I was good for a long time. I stayed away from narcotics. Even when my dad, was in so much pain with his cancer and we had all kinds of narcotics in the house, I never even thought about touching them. But after I was married, before and after my first daughter, is when things really started to get bad, and I would find any excuse to get my hands on pain meds, or benzos or whatever. I also was going through anorexia. I was just a mess. And I remember I was going to different counselors trying to get help, but I don't know. It just, it takes, you really do have to hit rock bottom. And for me, I had to hit rock bottom many times before I woke up and realized the damage that I was doing to myself and to my family. And, it destroyed my first marriage. There was, I lost a lot of contact with my children because of it for a while, which was extremely hard because my daughters were my world. Um, I did a lot of dumb things. As addicts, we all do. We all lie. We do what we have to do to get our hands on what we need. And it wasn't until, well, geez, I'm trying to explain. There's so much that's happened. During all of those, from the time that I left home until, oh goodness, until just like 2016, I think was my last hospital stay. I was in and out of psychiatric units a lot, and I've had very deep, major, major depression where I tried to kill myself a couple of times. It was a lot of pain, and I didn't know how to deal with it, and I didn't want to face the fact that, how do I explain this? I Okay, life gives you all kinds of different experiences, and I believe that there's a divine plan for everybody. And we're given different experiences to learn and to grow. And I wasn't looking at everything that had happened to me and looking at it as an opportunity to learn. I was looking at it as poor me. I hurt. I wasn't in it for the long run. I just wanted the pain to stop for a long time. And in doing that, I destroyed a lot of relationships. One of my sisters still keeps me at a distance, and it breaks my heart. I've had to do a lot of repairing, after that. But anyway, the point is, I've been in psychiatric units. I mean, I even spent 6 months in our state hospital here in Utah. I've had countless, I don't even know how many times I've had ECT, electroconvulsive therapy, shock therapy. I've had so much of that. I've been on every medication that they've had. It's been a struggle. And it wasn't until I'm trying to remember what even happened, but in 2008, I finally went to rehab. I was there for 6 months. I had a lot to work through. And I'm grateful. It was very difficult, and I went through a horrible depression when I was there. But I started to get straightened out, and I started to look at every situation that I've been presented with in a different way. And, and after that, I did relapse once, but now it's been about 14 years since since I relapsed. I've been, sober about 14 years and some. I'd have to sit down and look to give you the exact days, but it was really, I was still in and out of the hospital after that for the next probably 8 years, just battling the depression, the anxiety, trying to work through things. But it wasn't until 2016, honestly, that I went through a big change. And I don't even remember what it was that started that change. But I started reading everything I could get my hands on. I started writing in journals and just pouring my heart out in my journals. And I started looking at everything and realizing that I've been given all these different opportunities to grow, and I've been pushing against them rather than looking at myself. When you're given a situation, you can't control a lot of things that come on you, but you can control what you do about it. If you choose to face it and to face the issues that you are dealing with, and you have to look at yourself, and you have to take responsibility for yourself. It wasn't until I started doing that I went through this huge change. And I haven't had to go to the hospital since 2016, and I still struggle with anxiety and depression, but it's manageable now. When I've learned so much about myself, I know when I start to feel bad, I know what to do about it now. And what I'm trying to say is, I have been in the very depths of sorrow many times. Many times I've tried to take myself out of this world many times, and for some reason, I don't believe in coincidence. There's always been something that happened or someone that was there, and I'm still here, and so I know whatever I've been sent here to do, I'm not done. But I understand, when people hurt, I know I see that pain in people's eyes, and I'm very empathic. I can feel what people feel. And I'm here to tell you that you can rise from that. You can conquer that. You can climb out of that hole and come out on top. You really can. I've done it, and I will not let myself go back into that hole again. It takes a lot of work, and there's a lot of things that I do. And I've had, so much therapy and so much writing and things, and I'm still working on triggers from my childhood, because the house I grew up in was very chaotic, and there was a lot of yelling, screaming, fighting, emotional abuse. It was rough, but I'm still dealing with some of that, but I'm dealing with it. I'm facing it now. I'm looking right at these things, and I'm figuring out what things I need to do to get over it, because, everything that we have been through affects our lives, and it affects the people around us. It really does. But, I'm here to tell you that you really can come out of that. You can. What it takes is you looking at your situation in a different way. Look at a problem and say, okay, yes, this is painful. Yes, this hurts, and I don't like this. I don't want this, but I need to deal with it. What can I learn from it? What is it there? What is this thing here trying to teach me? If you start looking at things like that way, huge difference. Oh my goodness, huge difference. The other thing that helps so much, and I have to do this every morning, is gratitude. I have to write down a few things every morning that I am grateful for, because there is so much I am grateful for. I have a good life. I've recently gone back to work, have a wonderful job with wonderful people. I have these amazing grandchildren. I have this amazing husband. We go together, we travel together, and we do Spartan races, which are kind of like Tough Mudders, like obstacle course races. We do that, and I have to brag a little bit. My husband, he's a world-class athlete, and I am so proud of him. He's amazing. He came in third place this year in this nation. He is third place, top third guy in his age group. And if you could see how hard he works and what he puts himself through in these races, you'd be as marveled as I am. And he keeps it up. He's amazing, and he's such a source of inspiration and strength to me. Amazing guy. But anyway, geez, what was I? Oh, gratitude. I'm so grateful for him, for my children, for my mother, for the relationships I have, the friends I have. Some amazing friends, and I'm meeting people online that are just amazing. Tommy and Mark on the lifeboat, amazing guys. Oh my goodness. So blessed that I have met them. They're amazing. But gratitude, being grateful for what things you do have, makes a big difference in how you look at things too. And my husband and I don't have a lot of money. We both work really hard for the things we do have. We don't have a big, nice house like a lot of our friends do. We drive really, old cars that are paid for, and but we have them. We don't have a lot of nice things, but we have, compared to a lot of other places in this world, we have so much. I have a place to lay my head every night. I have food, plenty of it. There's just so many things to be grateful for. There really are, and there that you can find joy in this life. You really can, and this life is really worth the struggle. It really is, and I look at my life now as a gift. What do I do with this gift? Do I waste it, or do I do something to help somebody else and pay back the one who gave me this life? But I want to share something with you. Let me just check my notes, make sure I have talked about everything that I want. Okay, yep. Okay. This book that I have right here, and I'm sure a lot of you have read this. It's Man's Search for Meaning. Oh, it's backwards in the Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. And he was, I don't remember if he was a psychiatrist or a psychologist, but he was German and he was Jewish. So he ended up in a concentration camp. He ended up losing his family, his wife, but he made it through. And he's written quite a few things, and I've heard him. I've seen recordings of him speaking about things. I mean, he's just an amazing guy. And I just want to share a few things out of this book that they say about him and that he wrote. Okay, just here in this foreword, I have it underlined here. This was the words of Nietzsche. He who has a why to live for can bear almost any how. Let me repeat that. I want you to think about that for a minute. He who has a why to live for can bear almost any how. I love that. I love that. It is true. And then, this is still in the foreword, but it says here, he learned in his experience in Auschwitz that life is not primarily a quest for pleasure, as Freud believed, or a quest for power, as Alfred Adler taught, but a quest for meaning. The greatest task for any person is to find meaning in his or her life. Frankl saw 3 possible sources for meaning: in work, or, in other words, doing something significant. The second one would be in love, or in other words, caring for another person. Or the third one is and encourage during difficult times. Suffering in and of itself is meaningless. We give our suffering meaning by the way in which we respond to it. That's what made a difference in my life. That's when I started to get this. Let's see, and further down, but even one such example is sufficient proof that man's inner strength may raise him above his outward fate. And then it says here, finally, Frankl's most enduring insight, one that I called on often in my own life and in countless counseling situations: forces beyond your control can take away everything you possess except one thing: your freedom to choose how you will respond to a situation. You cannot control what happens in your life, but you can always control what you will feel and do about what happens to you. And then I underlined something here, and it said, having a why to live enabled them to bear the how, referring to those in the concentration camp. I'm trying to remember. Let me see who wrote this forward. It was, Harold S. Kushner was who wrote that forward. But anyway, I want to, let's see. He's talking about his experiences in the concentration camp. And this is just one example that I always found so powerful. And I remember reading this as a kid, probably 8 or 9, and being blown away at this story here. It says, we who lived in concentration camps can remember men who walked through the huts comforting others, giving away their last piece of bread. They may have been few in number, but they offer sufficient proof that everything can be taken from a man but one thing: the last human freedom to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances, to choose one's own way. And like I was saying, you don't have a whole lot of control often. It's some of the things that happen to you, but you can control your attitude. You can control what you do about it? And I can't imagine being in a concentration camp, because everything was taken from those people. And yet look at what he saw, what people were doing, and he was the same way. Those are the things that he did. But he was, in his writing further down here, it says, Dostoevsky said once, "There is one thing that I dread, not to be worthy of my sufferings." These words frequently came to my mind after I became acquainted with those martyrs whose behavior in camp, whose suffering and death bore witness to the fact that the last inner freedom cannot be lost. It can be said that they were worthy of their sufferings. The way they bore their suffering with a genuine inner achievement. It is the spiritual freedom which cannot be taken away that makes life meaningful and purposeful. And then I want to read one more part, and then I'll be done with this reading. The way in which a man accepts his fate and all the suffering it entails, the way in which he takes up his cross, gives him ample opportunity, even under the most difficult circumstances, to add a deeper meaning to his life. It may remain brave, dignified, and unselfish, or in the bitter fight for self-preservation, he may forget his human dignity and become no more than an animal. Here lies the chance for a man either to make use of or to forego the opportunities of attaining the moral values that a difficult situation may afford him, and this decides whether he is worthy of his sufferings or not. As addicts, we all suffer, and it's not easy. Are we worthy of that? I love that thought. I love that thought. And I there's so many things I've underlined. I could continue reading, but I will stop for now. I wanted to just give you another example. I just want to preface this by saying that all religions are welcome here. And I don't believe that any one religion is necessarily better than another one. I'm Christian, and so just please, if you don't agree with Christianity, just please understand that that's where I draw a lot of strength, and it's really hard for me not to talk about the gospel that I know, because it's too much a part of my life, and it has been my entire life. So, please just bear with me and not turn away if you don't agree with it, because I do believe I have a lot I can offer. Now, what I wanted to talk about really quick was just that story in the Old Testament about Joseph, the one that had the coat of many colors. As you can all recall, all of you who know this story, he was the youngest one. He was his father's favorite, Jacob's favorite. He was the youngest one as well, and he meant a lot to his father, and his father kind of spoiled him, and he gave him a special coat that in the Bible it says coat of many colors. And that all the brothers were jealous of him. He did get special treatment, most likely, and they hated him. A lot of them did. And you know how families can be. You know how brothers and sisters can be, just absolutely horrible to one another at times, especially when they're jealous of one another. And anyway, you know the story. They wanted to kill him. They wanted to kill him. And in the end, I can't remember which brother stepped forward. Was it Reuben? And said, no, let's sell him to some. No, what was he? Oh, I remember what he was going to do is they were going to put him in that pit so that he would die there, and then the blood wouldn't, be on their hands completely. And then at the last minute, they saw some. Wow. I just read this a couple weeks ago. I can't think of the name, but there were some merchants that were coming by, Midianites, I think it was. And anyway, they decided to sell Joseph to them. And they took away the coat, they tore it up, they put some animal blood on it, and they sent him away with the people that he was sold to. And they took the jacket to their father and told him that, a wild animal must have killed Joseph. And, here Joseph is taken to Egypt and he's a slave. And, I can't imagine, that's pretty much like a concentration camp situation at first. If you're a slave and you're taken from your family, your freedoms, everything's taken from you. Joseph looked at things in a different way. He must have, because what we know out of the Bible next is that he was working in Potiphar's house, and this was a very, very powerful man, and he came to trust Joseph and love Joseph. And Joseph was a very good-looking, very intelligent young man, and he ended up being very trusted by Potiphar. What Potiphar's wife tried to sleep with him, and when he turned her down, she got mad and lied. Well, Joseph ended up in prison. So once again, bam, he's, freedoms are taken away, and he's in prison. And then, as you read more of the story, you find out that he became very trusted in the jail, and was trusted with keys and things like that. And he could have been really bitter and angry and just been horrible about the whole thing, and not tried and not been pleasant, but obviously he worked hard, and he was trustworthy, and he was a very likable person, because no matter where he went, he rose. He ends up in the end, as he's able to interpret the dream that Pharaoh had about the 7 years of plenty and the 7 years of famine that were coming. And so that those 7 years, all the surplus, was saved, so that Egypt would have enough food to get them through the 7 years of famine that were coming. And this famine wasn't just Egypt. This reached all the way back to where his family was living. And I want you to think about this for a minute, this story, because, some really awful things happened to Joseph, but yet look where he ended up and what he did. It ended up saving the Egyptians, but it saved his family, because, as you know in the story, his family came down to buy grain. And at this time, Joseph was the most powerful man in Egypt, right under Pharaoh. And Joseph saw them, there to buy grain. And, that's, the story continues. He ends up in the end bringing his whole family to be with him. He makes up with his brothers. He forgives them. He gets his family back. But look at what happened. All these bad things happened, but there was a purpose, because he ended up saving all of them, his whole family. Egypt, lots of people, because there were a lot of people that came to buy grain, not just the Egyptians. He saved a lot of lives. There was purpose. There was a purpose to all the suffering. And I believe that there's a purpose in suffering for all of us. You have to, that's an individual thing, and you have to figure that out for yourself, the whys. But I really encourage you to, think about this story, and maybe look back at your life and where you are, and maybe you'll start to be able to connect the dots of all the things that have happened to you, and you'll start to see the reasons behind them. When you can do that, it really helps you out, makes you feel a lot better about everything, and you start to see your own inner strength. And I promise you, you are much stronger than you think. You really are. And I know things are hard, and I know things are painful. It's not easy right now. The last few years have been really tough for everybody, financially, politically. I mean, there's so many crazy things going on. The next few years don't look much better. And, that's nothing that you don't already know. But, that it presents another opportunity for growth. It presents another way of looking at things, because we're all going to experience more issues, more problems. Um, so I want to put a little plug in here. The next couple of years, I really don't think are going to be very easy for us. And I want to encourage you to take care of your mental health and take care of your physical health, because your physical health and your mental health are very intertwined. You know, I know that all of these things in a lot of instances cost money. Please do your best. If you are suffering, from a mental illness or a physical illness, please do what you need to do to get that taken care of, because I don't know how much longer we can trust the, gosh, what's the word I want? I don't know how much longer we can trust what we have in society as far as hospitals and doctors and things running the way that they are. You really need to become your own advocate and take care of yourself and take care of your family. It's really important, and the healthier you are, the better off you're going to be in handling all of the things that come. So I just want to put that plug in there, and I also say, everybody talks about prepping, having sufficient food and water for an emergency. But one thing that I don't hear very often is being medically prepared. And that is something that I'm teaching. I have been teaching here where I live, and I've done a little bit online, but I'm going to start putting some of those things on this channel as well. And if you're not interested, you don't have to tune in. And I will definitely put in the description of each video what it's going to be about, so you know whether or not you want to tune in. But that is just something else to think about. What are you going to do to maintain your mental health and your physical health? Hello, Misha. Come here, baby. What are you going to do, to maintain those things? You need to be medically ready for whatever might be coming our way as well. Sorry, I'm just looking at my notes here. Oh, okay. I know a lot of people that are listening have come over here from the lifeboat. And if you're familiar with Tommy and Mark, they give some really good advice. And I want to encourage you to listen to what they're saying, because these two men have been in very difficult circumstances and been in a lot of pain. And I know they've been through some rough times. And right now they're doing amazing things. And they have pulled themselves out of that hole that we all find ourselves in. And the things that they encourage you to do, they work if you do them. And I just really want to encourage you to listen to what they're saying. I was thinking about this earlier. Like I said, I do, my husband and I do Spartan races. He's the one that kills it. He competes. I just do them for fun and just to survive them. But I also love to do trail races, 5Ks, 10Ks, half marathons. And, this year I was actually going to do 2 marathons, and I ended up getting very sick for a while. So they have been rolled over to next year. So, but I just keep pushing myself. And what I was thinking of the first trail run that I did. Spartan also does trail runs where it's just, running through the mountains, but you're not having to do all the obstacles. And I've done quite a few of those. And the first one I ever did was in, West Virginia in 2019. It was a hoot. It was hard. Oh my goodness. It was hard. I have never I don't know if I've ever been that tired in my life. I mean, there were hills that we were trying to climb up where you had to get on your knee, well, not your hand, but your hands and your feet trying to climb up. There was a part where you had to pull yourself up to the next level with a rope. I mean, there was just some crazy things. You know, it was a very technical race for a trail race, but it was so much fun. But the thing is that there at the same time my husband was doing his obstacle course, and sometimes we shared the same trail, and sometimes we had to watch for the tape markers to stay on the course. And at the beginning of that race, they tell you, which color of tape you need to follow, um, and you've got to follow that and not get lost. And silly me, I get take off and I'm running and I'm listening to my music and I'm just looking at the girl in front of me, following her, and all of a sudden we realize we're not seeing the tape anymore. Oops. And there were a bunch of people behind us that were following us, and I felt so dumb. And we all had to turn around and go back and find the trail. But sometimes you do get lost, but so you got to pay attention. And I look at that tape, um, as something that I've got to watch for and stay within, to reach the finish line. And that's the way I look at the things that Tommy and Mark ask us to do. Writing in a journal, um, reaching out to somebody. I mean, all of those things are like those tapes to me in my mind. The tapes of the race. You've got to pay attention to those things. You've got to do those things. You've got to mind those markers so you can stay on the course and you can reach the finish line. And that's kind of how I see it. And I really love what Tommy and Mark are sharing. And I mean, look at what they're doing. It works. It works. And and I know some of the things I'm doing, they work for me, and very helpful. Let's see, the other thing, let's see. I think right now, things are difficult for everybody. A lot of people are dealing with depression and anxiety. They're dealing with suicides, with people they've lost, that have that wonderful drug that crosses the border. That's killed a lot of people. A lot of people hurt. It's obvious that the powers that be are not going to help with this. They're not going to end this. They're not going to help us. We have to be the ones that take care of this problem. And that means that we reach out. Look what Tommy and Mark are doing. It's what I'm trying to do. Reach out to people. We need one another, and we need to take care of one another. We need to, take control of our lives and help one another so they can do the same with theirs. It's got to come from here, for all of these problems to end. It's got to come from us, not from the powers that be. I don't believe that's going to happen, that we're going to get help that way. And, when Tommy and Mark tell you, when you're hurting, to reach out to someone, they're telling me that because it helps, it works. And, the people that do that are the ones that stay sober. It's the people that suffer in silence that end up using again and losing the sobriety that takes, how hard it is at times. It's not easy. And we really do. We need to take care of one another, and I have a lot of physical pain, and in fact, today I'm hurting a lot today because it stormed last night and my body's just full of inflammation right now, and I hurt, but I'm happy because I'm doing something that I'm trying to reach out, and I'm trying to help people. And, it's makes dealing with physical pain a lot easier. And, it does help. And, the other thing that, I wanted to say about reaching out to somebody and why it's so important is because when you have, this works with anxiety as well, but when you have something here in your head that you're extremely worried about, or you have a situation that's really got you going, and it triggers your limbic system. um, that kind of triggers your fight or flight. So if you're worried about something and you notice you're feeling a lot of anxiety, and you feel that fight or flight feeling, that's your limbic system. If you reach out to somebody and you tell them what you're feeling and what's going on, everything that's in your limbic system here moves up to your frontal lobes. This is the area, your adult, this is your adult, this is your logic, this is your, being rational. This is, you've got to move things from your limbic system to here, because that's when you can look at it properly, think things through, see things the way they really are. If you keep everything back here in your limbic system where you're just in fight or flight all the time, yeah, that will definitely lead to using again. But talking about it, it moves things up here. You start to see things differently, you start to feel things differently. I mean, there's an actual physical reason why you need to reach out. And you've got to get rid of that thought that, oh, I don't want to bother so and so. Because you know what? When I find out that somebody that I know needed help and they didn't come to me, I get angry, because I live for that. That is, in a lot of ways, helping people, healing people. That's my calling in life. That's why I'm a nurse. You've got to get over that. If you have a trusted friend and they tell you that they're there for you, take them up on it. Seriously, it's not it. You would Somebody asking me for help, it's never going to put me out. What makes me angry, like I said, is when I find out they needed something and they didn't come to me. That makes me mad. And it's so, what helping people, like I said, it helps me deal with my physical pain so much. It makes it so much easier. Um, let's see, just have a few other thoughts I wanted to share with you. Um, One of the things that I like to do, looking back on all the things that I've been through, is I look at the things that have tripped me up. There's a lot of stumbling blocks in my life. I've made a lot of mistakes, and there's been a lot of situations where I could have chosen to do something much better. And I would have gotten through it and not stumbled and fallen down, so to speak. What you do, by looking at things in the way of what can I learn from them, that you can turn that block that you stumbled over, you can turn that into a stepping stone. And that's how I kind of like to look at my life now, is I'm making those stumbling blocks into stepping stones. um, that's kind of how I look at things now. And people think I'm crazy when I say this, but I'm going to say it again. I've been through some horrible things in my life. That accident, all the times I've been in and out of psychiatric wards, the death of my father, um, the death of my aunt and uncle a couple of years ago. I mean, there's just, oh my goodness, there's just so many things that I've been through and that are painful. But you know what? I am grateful for every single one of the tough things I've been through, because it has made me who I am. I've learned from that. And like I said, a lot of people think I'm nuts when I say that, but I really am. I am grateful for all of the difficulties that I've been presented with. And I'm grateful for the mistakes that I've made. Now, I know that sounds crazy, but now I am, because I've learned from them. And a lot of times we don't learn unless we make mistakes. And I don't think that life was meant to be easy. And I look at it like running. If running was easy, everybody would do it. It's hard. And yet, yeah, I do it. I love to run now. I never thought I'd be a runner. And I think both my girls and my husband are probably still like, wow, she still does this. But, just because something's hard doesn't mean it's bad. It just takes you changing the way you look at it to start with. Um, let's see. The only other thing I wanted to share with you today was just to encourage you to be your own advocate. Nobody's going to jump in to your life and save you. That just doesn't happen. No one's going to jump in and fix your problems, save you from whatever. It takes you. You have to make that decision to face yourself, deal with the shame, of the mistakes you've made. But it really it can be overcome. But please be your own advocate. If you need mental health help, if just need somebody to talk to, if you've got some physical ailment, you've got to be your own advocate and find the help that you need. And I know, as a nurse, I've seen some really good doctors and I've seen some really rotten ones. And I have found, now I lost my train of thought. Okay, grief. Oh, what I was going to say is, if you are dealing, if you're seeing a psychiatrist or a psychologist or an MD for something, or, a PA, whatever, and you don't like them and you're not getting the help that you need, you don't have to stay with them. Find somebody else. Please be your own advocate, because you've got to take care of you so that you can take care of everybody around you. Like I said, nobody's going to save you. You have to do that yourself. People will be there to help if you choose to let them in and if you choose to ask for the help. But ultimately, it has to come down to you. But again, I promise you, I find joy in this life now. And there are times when I still fall into depression, but I know how to deal with it and I know what to do about it. And this life is definitely worth the struggle, and I can promise you that. And I'll just say once again, please, if you need help, reach out to people. Please do that. And love you guys. I just, addicts and people that suffer from chronic pain and people that suffer from mental illness, it is a lot of suffering and it's not easy, but you can do it. And I am proof right here that you can deal with all these things. You can come out on top. You can help other people and you can be happy. You really can. And that's all I have for today. But I hope everyone is well. And thank you for viewing this. Please hit the like button for me and subscribe if you haven't. I would really appreciate that. And I just wanted to say too, I will be doing not just things that deal with addiction, but I'm going to be talking a lot about ways that I deal with chronic pain. I really want to help others, find alternatives and things that are going to help them. I really do just want to help. And I will talk to you guys later. Thank you.